This was back in 2000 when I had just left Interval Research, which was Paul Allen's laboratory for inventing the future of the internet. Paul Allen was the co-founder of Microsoft. So I worked there for 2 years, and then my contract there ran out, and with several people from Interval, we decided to start a new nonprofit that we called the Boundary Institute to study the boundaries between mind and matter. So this was in right in the middle of the dot-com craze, and it was hard to find office space in and around Silicon Valley. So we were starting to go out to the periphery, and we found a place in Los Altos, which is in Silicon Valley, but sort of the suburb. And it was an office park that had a wide variety of professional services of all kinds. So we found a spot and we rented that. And for a number of months, I was the only one in there because I was setting it up and we didn't have that much money yet. And so we had pretty 5 or 6 rooms, and all of them were empty except my office. My office was abutting the wall of the people next door. I was lived close enough to be able to walk to work, and I always walked a certain way that bypassed everyone else. So I was able to go immediately right to our office. So one day I decided I think I'll walk a different way. I started walking to see who our neighbors were in this office complex. And it was real estates and dentists and things like that. And then I walked past a place that said PsyQuest Inc. And I thought, oh, that's a funny coincidence, because Psy was spelled P-S-I, Psy, and then Quest, capital Q. I thought, well, that must be like Personnel Services Incorporated or something like that. And one of these days I'll introduce myself and just find out what they do. And then as I walk around the corner and I'm heading towards our office, I noticed that there's right next to us, our neighbor is PsyQuest Labs. And so now I'm much more interested, because what is Personnel Services doing with a laboratory? And it's right next to us. So I look in the door and it has mini blinds and you can't really see very well in there, but there's no one in there. There's a reception area, but there's no one there. So every day over the next month or so, I walked that way so I could see if someone was in there. I wanted to introduce myself and find out what are you doing here? What kind of laboratory is this? And finally, one day I walked past and the mini blinds are a little bit open and I could see there's somebody in the reception area. So I knock on the door, a man comes, opens the door, and what I say immediately is, hello, I'm Dean Radin, your neighbor. And the man who's standing there just has a shocked expression on his face and was sort of stunned. He was just standing there and not doing anything. And I thought, well, this is awkward, because he doesn't look right. He looks stunned. Well, why would you look stunned? Because somebody's at the door. Finally, it turns out that he explains what is going on and why he was so stunned. Because he had spent the prior 24 hours trying to manifest me. And the story then is that he was doing a dream yoga technique where you spend 3 hours awake intending for a certain outcome, and then you go 3 hours of sleep, and you do this over a 24-hour cycle, and it doesn't take long before you get into a very weird altered state, which is the point. So he was trying to manifest me because he was doing psi research like we were doing with his company, PsyQuest, which is a business for psychic research business, and the laboratory was trying to develop products that he would eventually sell. And to help raise funds, he wanted me to be on his board of directors, but he had no idea where I was. I mean, even at that point, very few people knew I even lived in Silicon Valley. And he was doing this manifestation technique to try to get in contact with me. But he had no idea that I was going to open the door one day and be there, which is why he was so shocked. So then I became shocked too, because I felt that I had free will, but apparently not as free as I thought, because I showed up more or less at his bidding. Except it wasn't completely at his bidding, because after all, we needed an office, and I wanted to find out, who is this person? What is the synchronicity? So that's part of the strangeness. The second part is I explained what we were doing and what our plans were. Of course, he was very excited about that. And I said, well, I've been in my office the last month and a half or so, drawing on a whiteboard on our wall about a laboratory setup that I wanted to create, which involved a certain kind of shielded room and a certain reclining chair and various kinds of equipment. And his eyes started bugging out and said, well, do you want to see what I have in my laboratory? Yes. Go around the corner into a room which is adjacent to the wall where my office was, which has the shielded room and the special chair and the physiology equipment and everything that I was drawing on the board on my wall. So was I doing remote viewing on the other side of the wall, or was I manifesting what I needed but didn't have yet? This was yet another crazy synchronicity. And also, it kind of suggests also in retrospect that if you want to create something that would be useful in a pragmatic sense so that you can get investors to pay for it, what it amounts to is something like the power of affirmations, the power of intention really does work, but it works a whole lot better if you have two people who are kind of revolving around each other and working on similar things. And now in his case, he was using a dream yoga technique, which pushes hard on an altered state of consciousness to have for the affirmation. In my case, I was spending a couple hours a day, at least thinking about and drawing what I wanted. But drawing, of course, as I point out in my book on magic, drawing has two meanings. One is you make a sketch of what you want. The other one is you pull it towards you. And what was happening here very much was like a gravitational pull. There are two pulls going on, very closely linked to each other, as we learned later, that actually caused us to be in proximity to each other, which is certainly a synchronicity, but it suggests more of a metaphor of something like affirmations and intention create a pull that pulls reality into together somehow.